Hi, my name is Tasha Danielle, and I'm founder of Financial Garden. Financial Garden is a financial education company that teaches students kindergarten through 12th, adults, and educators how to win with money. Had to pause this video really quick to share some exciting news. Financial Garden has a chance to win $100,000 from Pine Sol and Essence magazine. What I need you to do is go over to financialgarden.com, web address shown on your screen, and when you get there you will see a big pop-up. Click on this and you go vote for me. It will reroute you directly to the link. Scroll down and you will see me right here. Vote for me. Send it to your friends. Financial Garden could use this funding to expand into more schools and provide more financial education. Okay, back to real estate. If you're new to this channel, be sure to subscribe and like this video. This video is all about my first time home buying experience, broken out in 7 steps. I purchased my first home in 60 days. So from the time I decided to actually go look for a house and finding the home and going through underwriting and everything, I was able to get the keys. So let's dig into this process. What made me interested in home ownership? Well, it was my friend who purchased her home and had an amazing housewarming party. And I just loved everything that she did with the house, that she could paint and decorate any way she wanted it to be because she owned the home. And prior to her housewarming, I never really considered home ownership. I grew up in an apartment and I was currently living in an apartment and was just tunnel vision on paying off all my debt, $80,000 before the age of 30. So when I was at her housewarming event, I was like, why am I not a homeowner? Why haven't I took a serious look at what it means to become a homeowner? So from that event, I decided to attend a first-time homebuyers class. Luckily for me, a member at my church has a nonprofit that teaches people how to buy their homes. Well, teaches first-time homebuyers all about the home buying experience. So I will link her organization in the description box in case you want to check it out if you are in the Detroit area. It's really amazing. So the first time homebuyers class is pretty intense. It's 7 hours. It took up my Saturday and it went through everything from finding a realtor, finding a mortgage banker, what you should look for in a home inspector. What does a title company do, and what it means to make sure all the liens are looked for. What can you do as a home buyer to look out for certain things? It was really in depth, and it wasn't just from one person's perspective. There were actual experts in that particular field that were brought in to explain what they do. So when it came to explaining what a title company did, a title company was there. It wasn't a mortgage banker giving their perspective. And I thought that was pretty cool. So after attending that first time home buyers class, did I go look for a home immediately? No. All that information overwhelmed me, and I realized that I should consider if I truly want to even stay in the state before I buy a home. Because at that point I was focused on paying off my debt, as I said before, but I knew that I always wanted to live out of Michigan. Side note, I never left Michigan. I'm still here. But a few years ago, I knew that I wanted to make sure that I planned to at least be in Michigan for a few years before buying a home. So I delayed the home buying process. So fast forward to a couple years later, and I did make the decision to stay in Michigan. That all was lost with me moving out of state. I kind of gave up on that dream. And I'm like, okay, let me look back into home buying. And a friend of mine was going through a home buying process as well. It was her first time looking for a home, and she told me about a program called NACA. Now, I don't really remember what it stands for, but I will again link that information in the description box so you can take a look. But basically, it is an organization that assists people with their closing costs on a home, and it doesn't go according to your income, which was huge for me because a lot of programs I didn't qualify for because of my income. So she explained to me the program, what she was doing, and what all I needed to know about the program. So I signed up, attended another first time home buyers class because that's one of the requirements in NACA. And it was cool because it was a refresher. It had been a couple years since I attended the first one. So after attending the NACA First-Time Homebuyers event, I decided to delay purchasing a home with NACA because I just didn't feel like the program was right for me after having the initial consultation with the agent. Nothing negative about the program. It just didn't make the most sense for me at that time. So because I decided not to go with NACA and I really wasn't dead set on the neighborhood that I wanted to live in, I again delayed the home buying process. Now you may be saying, I thought this video was about you closing on a home in 60 days. I just want to share what I went through to get to the actual spot of buying a home. It took me a few years to wrap my mind around and get comfortable with being a homeowner. And that's even after attending a couple classes. Like I said, my background, I did not live in a home. And so the whole process was a bit intimidating to me. Not a home, I didn't live in a house growing up. All right, so let's dig into actually going through the home buying process. Number 2, pre-qualification and pre-approval. When I was living downtown in my high-rise with my amazing views, a good friend of mine, Rochell, called me and she told me that I needed to get involved in real estate investing. Ultimately, it led to me purchasing my first home, and I will do a whole nother video on real estate investing. But basically, she was telling me that I needed to be a homeowner, and she was walking me through that process because she had been into real estate for quite some time at that moment, and she wanted me to get involved too. Currently, she is a broker in the Atlanta area. Her name is Rochell Montaie. So I have her information on the screen. If you are in the market for a home, she's awesome. But when she talked to me, she was telling me that before she can connect me with a real estate agent in my area, that I needed to get a pre-qualification or pre-approval. That meant I needed to do some digging to figure out what lender would work for me, what type of lender would work for me, I should say. And I was choosing between my credit union, the big bank that I also banked with, and a local bank that I had my business accounts with. I do have my banks in different institutions because I just find that if you ever have a problem with one, all your money is not tied up in one location. So between those two, I was looking at what was the interest rate, what discounts did they offer if you had an account already, like what other factors could make a lender more appealing. And I also looked at reviews and asked friends and family what they thought, what lender they went with. And I also did go back to what I learned in my first-time homebuyers classes. I wanted to add that I had previous banking experience at a big bank, and so I also knew some of the pros and cons of working with that big bank. A lot of people complained about the closing process with the one big bank. So after remembering that, I asked them out and I focused on the two banks. I focused on the credit union and the local bank. I ultimately decided to go with the local bank, and I didn't have a great experience at first. The mortgage banker did a quick pre-approval on me. I have no debt at that point. I had none. I had paid off all my debt. I had a pretty high W-2 salary, so my process was smooth and easy. But I know for some people who have, if their sole income is a small business or they have a lot of debt, the pre-approval process can take some time and maneuvering, and also depending on your credit score. I had a high credit score as well, so it was only a few minutes and I got pre-approved. I didn't need to provide additional information to be pre-approved, which I do hear happens a lot when people have small businesses. The problem that I had with the local bank was the time it took for them to give me the pre-approval letter. I got the pre-approval and didn't get the letter. So I kept emailing this person, and ultimately I was like, okay, let me just go to another bank. Not the big bank I was considering before, but another one. And I went through their whole process. The same thing happened. I didn't get a pre-approval letter. And, well, no, I take that back. I got a pre-qualification letter, but the pre-approval took forever. But at least I had that to begin working with my realtor to see homes. After dealing with the big bank and local bank, I ended up calling corporate on the local bank mortgage banker because I was like, look, I need to work with somebody else. I want to work with this bank, but this person sucks. And after I made that complaint, he was very responsive. Every time I sent him an email or phone call, he was just following up within hours. So needless to say, few hiccups in the beginning, but ultimately it ended up working out in the end. Except for at the closing process, I had a little hiccup with him, and I'll get to that later. Viewing homes. Finally got the letter, found the right realtor. Before she began showing me homes, I did have to send over my pre-approval, pre-qualification letter, And I did have to sign a contract with her saying that I wouldn't work with another realtor without giving her a written notice. I'm not sure if that is standard in every state, but I just wanted to share that with you all. I didn't find a problem with it. So if I saw a home listed online, I couldn't just call that realtor and work with them. Well, I could, but that realtor could lose some of their commission because of, I don't know, whatever the legal jargon is. But basically, I signed that to work with her. And I want to point out why I chose her as my real estate agent, because she was very timely and responsive. Like, even with my questions for her, I had 1,000,001 questions, y'all, before working with her, and she was able to answer them, and she was responsive. The other person that I sent questions to was not as responsive and didn't really want to answer my questions and didn't really want to answer the phone. And that's fine. Maybe I just wasn't a good fit for them, but I wasn't going to just work with anyone because I wanted to buy a home or because a friend recommended me. Rochell recommended a few real estate agents with me, and I found the best fit for me. So my tips for you, if you're looking for a real estate agent, definitely have some questions to ask them as far as what their availability is, what their overall response time is, how many homes they sold this year, how many times have they worked with buyers recently. You want to ask this information. You want to work with someone who is knowledgeable in the market, in the area that you're working in, and not just working with someone looking to get a commission. Well, obviously everyone's looking to get a commission, but they're knowledgeable in their field and in the areas that you're looking, and not trying to seem like they know what's going on, but they actually know. Okay, so looking at homes. If you haven't looked at a home before in person, let me let you know that it can be disappointing, because the pictures that you see on the MLS very rarely look like that in person. It's kind of like very disappointing and depressing, because you think like you are going to look at this amazing house, and it's like, no. They definitely be having the best filters and angles when taking these professional pictures to show their home. Not every house was like that, but I did experience that quite a lot. Well, let me not say that, because I only looked at 5 homes. So that also made my home buying process quick, because when you know, you know. I walked into the 5th house and I was like, this is it. Let's make an offer. The other homes, I was like, I don't know, let me look at more. But when you find the one you want, it makes sense for you. And I realized the house that I wanted, I made an offer. I made an offer that day. I didn't sleep on it. I know people have different stories on what they go through or whatever, but I'm like, hey, let's make an offer. And I decided to offer $20,000 less than list. Let me tell y'all, this was not a HGTV experience. I guess because I saw people always like comment under what asking was, and I was looking at the comps in the area where my realtor was. I was like, let me see if I can, get them low ball them. Rookie mistake, but I got the house anyway. But I was like, well, it's been on the market for this amount of days. It was put on and taken off, and so maybe, I can get them to come down. Anyway, they ultimately came down, not $20,000. They came down $4,000 from their asking price. So from there, it was time to go to home inspection. I picked my home inspector based on a referral or a few referrals to this individual, and I made sure this person was licensed and had a few questions for him as well, and moved forward. I wasn't familiar with living in a house per se. I did have a family friend who does handyman work come to look at the home with me during the inspections to look for things that I may not have considered. I also told my mom to tag along, and that's the first time she even knew I was looking at a house. So she was surprised, like, come look at a house that you're about to buy. What? I kept this whole process a secret because I didn't want people to deter me in buying a first home by myself. So anyway, during the home inspection, I asked a really important question, and I want to say, when you're doing a home inspection, trust your gut, because I am paying for it now. When we were in the basement, I asked the inspector, how do I know that there's not mold behind this finished walls? Like, the basement was finished off. The basement was finished with a kitchen, two bedrooms, and a bathroom. The basement was finished with a kitchen, a bathroom, and 2 bedrooms and a living area. And it was some type of wood paneling up that finished the basement. And I was asking the inspector, how do I know that there's not mold behind the boards because the way it's finished. And he was like, you would know because there would be moisture showing on the panels. And I think he showed me like how he was testing for moisture. I cannot remember because I looked at other homes after that. Like I'm in real estate now, so I have another property, so I can't remember what was going on with this inspection, like off the top of my head right now. But I do remember him saying, that he saw no mold, no moisture in the basement. Well, a year and a half later, I have severe structure issues in this house. That's a whole other video. But yeah, so trust your gut when you're buying your first home. I went through several first-time home buyers classes, had a family friend with me to look at the home, and something still went wrong. But guess what? I still made out in the end, so it's all good. What the inspector did find was some roof issues, and he suggested that the roof be replaced. So I went to the homeowners and said that I wanted them to pay for the roof repairs. And there were other things in the report, and there will always be like light fixtures and other minor things, something to freak out about, that were in the report. The major thing was the roof. That leads to number 5, renegotiation. When renegotiating with the sellers, I wanted them to pay for the cost of a new roof. And for me to figure out the cost of the new roof, I had to call roofers to come up with a price. And by me not being the homeowner, companies were requesting that I pay for a quote or pay for an inspection, because when you're not a homeowner, they don't want to come out and do free estimates because they're not going to give, they don't have potential business. You're not even the homeowner. I ultimately found a company that gave me some estimates based on the dimensions of the home, and I brought it to the sellers, and the sellers agreed to pay for the new roof, and they came down on the list price. After the renegotiation and we all signed on the dotted line, it was now time for the appraisal and underwriting to happen after the appraisal. So after we agreed to have an FHA loan, and you have to go through a FHA appraisal process, and with that, I didn't have to be there, and the appraisal process took a few hours and took about a week for it to order and to come in and for an appraiser to go out. The appraiser is chosen randomly by the bank, and you have to just wait at their mercy of what the appraiser says. The whole point of the appraisal is to see what the true home value is, not what people are putting bids on. So it's a little bit of both, actually, because when you do an appraisal, you're looking at the comps of what's sold and, whatever. I'm not an appraiser, so I'm not even going down that rabbit hole, but basically they're trying to determine the true value of the home. The appraisal came in under what the asking price was, which means that the lender had no problem of writing the loan because the home was worth more than the appraisal. I think it was probably like $6,000 difference. Like they appraised a home at $6,000 under the list price. So after the appraisal was cleared, now I moved on to the next step in the home buying process, which was underwriting. And that was the longest part of the process and the most annoying. I feel like they ask you for everything but your blood type. When you're doing the pre-approval process, you have to send over a ton of documents, like your bank statements for everything. Even if you have a business. So I have businesses, so I had to send over those. I had to send over W-2s, check stubs, all of that. When you're going through underwriting, you have to keep sending that. Like if the underwriting goes over, I think every 2 weeks you have to keep resending it or whatever. If they need the most updated version of the bank statement or the pay stub or whatever. And then they may make random requests based off of, I don't know, whatever they want to do. Because I had to get a letter from my landlord confirming that I lived there. And there was I had to get a letter. I had to write a letter because I had applied with a big bank aside from them. So they wanted to know why did I have my credit ran with another lender. So it's not that major, but it's just annoying. Like you have to keep responding to these emails. And so I'm responding right away. And then you sit and wait. And it just took a while to get the actual closing date from my lender. Another annoying thing was after finally getting the closing date from my lender, getting the final numbers. So the final numbers are what you need to bring to the closing table. The sellers came down on the house split between the list price and closing costs. So they paid a portion of my closing costs. So that was good for me. But I was waiting on the numbers, and this is the last hiccup I had with my mortgage banker. After him taking forever to get the pre-approval, he was responsive, but it took forever for him to get my closing numbers. I didn't know what I needed to have my cashiers check them out for until the day of closing. I literally was at my bank getting a cashier's check a couple hours before closing because he was waiting for the final numbers to come in. And that has not been the experience that other people have told me about, but that was annoying. Aside from him making those two big hiccups for me, I didn't have any other problems. They were very timely moved along because I have had friends that had deals fall apart in underwriting. So overall, my experience was good, and I closed on my home within 45 days, I want to say. In 45 days. So that is my home buying experience. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow Financial Garden on all the things listed on the screen, and I will see you in the next one.